Worship Leader Hangout, where we talk about many aspects of leading worship and leading a worship team. Today, I'm so honored to have a really good friend of mine, Josh Howard. He's online. You can see him on the screen right now. Wave, Josh. Anyway, so Josh and I are going to look at two things that every church bassist, or really any bassist, should know as they're getting started, or maybe as they're learning more. Maybe they've been playing for 10, 20 years and they just need to step back into a little bit of education and just get a little bit better and just spark that inner fire of their bass person inside them. Just sometimes we just get in a rut and we need that little extra step to just kind of pull us out of that rut. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Two things that every church bassist should know and should practice consistently. But Josh, man, it's been a little while since we've actually been able to get together and play. If you've been following me for any length of time, on the Worship Leader Hangout, I haven't really talked about me actually being a bass player, and that's what I pretty much started on in high school, that and guitar. I was a bassist through then and led worship, even on bass in high school a little bit. I played in marching band. I played in a little jazz thing in high school. I wasn't very good, but and actually Josh taught me so much more about jazz later on in college. And then I went to college and I tried out for a black gospel choir, thinking I wouldn't make this. There's no way in the world. Well, they needed a bass player, and probably desperately, but
God.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But I ended up in it. The next summer, I toured with a small ensemble, worship ensemble at Lee called Second Edition. It's comes out of Lee Singers. It was headed by Dr. Moffat at the time. Well, still is. Anyway, so I was playing, and we had to do this worship set in our performance hall, or whatever it's called at Lee. And I met Josh. Josh was a student at music camp that year. Our music department at Lee put on a music camp, and that was his last year that he was at music camp before he became a student at Lee.
That's right.
We ended up meeting right after that set.
That's crazy.
I went to, I don't remember if you came to where I was living or I went to where you were living, but we just got together for a little bit, played. I was like, dude, we got to hang out when you come to Lee.
Yeah.
And it's just been building from there. We sat in the back of an orchestra with our double basses for however long we were at Lee together,
like a couple of goons.
we just goofed off the whole time. So it just Mac, he was our director at the time. He would look at us, and he was a bass player. He would look at us and be like, "Bassist!" That's all I remember him saying. And we just knew, all right, straighten up. So finally, he got what he was looking for when a new freshman came. We were already sophomores at the time, or juniors, I don't know. A new freshman came in so much better than us at double bass and stepped right on in his first chair. But anyway, dude, we've had an awesome history together in college, especially. We've both gotten married and have babies now, and and you've stayed along the lines of a bass player in so many aspects. Why don't you talk about that? Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do now.
Yeah, man. Man, it's so funny hearing you say some of these old stories. It's like, I just don't realize how long it's been. You know what I mean?
I know. I can't believe it's already been 11 years.
Dude, that is insane. Anyway, well, so after, I think you're right. My as far as my musical career has been pretty, I think, traditional in terms of I currently play full time. I'm creatively invested in a few bands. By that I mean I'm writing for a few bands, whether it's songs or I'm arranging. I do a lot of arranging now, actually, in the bands that I'm in.
Right.
And so I'm doing those things, and at the same time, I'm MDing at one church and I'm playing in another church. So on Sundays I play at two churches, which takes all day. And then I teach during the week. I have about 20 students right now, but it's not all bass. Nobody wants to learn bass, so I don't. I don't teach a lot of bass students. I teach mostly guitar and piano, and I have one ukulele student. But I think that kind of week to week, that kind of picture, snapshot is a pretty traditional one as far as when you play full time. You've got your
Right.
hands on a lot of different things, And so for those would be, for me, it's, I play a ton of gigs, I play at church, I teach, and then I'm creatively involved in things, whether it's band or I'm writing or whatever. Yeah. So that's kind of what my life looks like right now. And it's like, if I was going to break it all down for you right now, it would take way too long and it would be really boring. So, but yeah, that's
all right.
what I'm doing.
So you just recently wrote a book.
I did, yeah.
And I'm sure there was a lot of information that you just were sitting on. You're just like, look, I've got to get a book out.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what brought you to writing that book, and then what that book's about.
Yeah, man. Well, I think when you kind of get into the professional world, one thing that's a little bit different than most people think is one of the better ways to kind of get gigs, and honestly, this is a tip for musicians of any, not just bass players, but musicians of any instrument, is that, it's one thing to be able to sound like anybody else that you want, and I think a lot of people think, well, if I can sound like, Prince's guitar player and Michael Jackson's guitar player and Van Halen, if I can sound like all those dudes, I'm going to get a bunch of gigs. But honestly, the truth is, if you cultivate your own sound and your own techniques and kind of the list of things that you do really well, instead of doing a whole bunch of things like kind of mediocre, you get a lot more work that way. And for me, one of those things was playing chords on bass. And by chords, I mean, I mean like, just playing more than one note at a time. Like that kind of thing. And so, man, it started as like not really a niche thing. I think a lot of bass players do it as like a niche or a little kind of a gimmick. But for me, I was playing a lot of cover gigs at the time, and all of those cover gigs, I mean, whenever you like properly record a song nowadays, there's like 50 tracks on it, right?
Yeah.
There's like multiple bass tracks, a ton of guitar tracks, a bunch of layers of keyboard. And when we're when I'm playing, like a Katy Perry song on a cover gig, we don't have 50 people on stage, obviously, because I'm trying to get paid,
Maybe 4.
Yeah, well, if we're lucky. And so, some people use tracks, and, we did a lot of that. But at the same time, people are so used to hearing, like, really thick music now. And so I actually started doing it really just to like, reproduce that feeling. So instead of playing something like... Instead of just playing that, the choruses feel huge. So just to, like, make that feel bigger, I'd play. It was just to replicate a feeling, honestly. And I just got such a positive reaction that I started doing it more and more. And then, fast forward, and that was like years and years ago when I started doing that. I mean, I was at Lee when I started doing that. But, fast forward, and man, I just had enough people be like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? How are you doing it? That I was like, you know what? I just need to get this all down in a book so I can just be like, here's where all the information is. If you want to know, go check this out. And if you have any more questions, you can ask me. Not that I hate answering questions, because that's not it at all. But, you know what I'm saying? When you say the same thing.
Yeah, it puts it all in one place, and people can access that, and you can make a little money for the information you're giving them. I mean,
and I can be like as articulate as I want to be.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, man, that's what the book is. The book is about bass chords. How I do it. It's not how everybody does it, and it's not like the right way. It's just how I do it. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I think people appreciate that more than just saying, okay, well, this is the most proper way to do something. I mean, you say, this is the way I do it, and this is the way I enjoy it.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and from what I've seen I haven't bought the book yet, and I will. But I meant
I'll
to
send
do
you
that
one for
before
free.
we started.
You don't have to pay for anything.
But when you some of the samples that you showed out of there, I was like, oh man, this looks good. So I mean, it's Josh didn't just kind of scratch stuff on a piece of paper and then just smack it together and then tape it with duct tape. I mean, this thing is like really nice, so check it out for sure. I'll definitely put a link in the bio of this video, the description of this video. But also, Josh has a YouTube channel. He goes over some of the stuff that's in the book. I think he's going to be doing a lot more coming up in the future. Yeah. And so we're really excited to see that. But today we're going to talk about 2 things that every worship bassist should know or should use. And I want to get right into that. Maybe with number 1. I don't know what you're going to do for number 1, but let's start with number 1.
Yeah, so number one is, when you look at a chart, you know what I'm saying? Or when you learn a song, normally what you're learning is, as a bass player, you learn like, okay, this is a C chord, now I play an F chord for this many bars, now I play a G, now I play an A, it's an A minor, or you might just think of it as an A. But really what I think people figure out, but not a ton of people explicitly say out loud for bass players, is that every one of those chord symbols represents more than one note, right?
Yeah.
So on average, it's like 3 notes, maybe up to like 6 notes.
Absolutely.
So I think one thing is just being aware of that, because I'll play a lot of gigs, especially church stuff, and I'm playing a lot more than just the C. I'm playing a lot more than that. And so one of the most common questions I get is, dude, how do you know what to play when you know what the chord is? And that's always where I start.
Yeah.
Some people jump right into scales, but that's too many notes, in my opinion, to be considering at the beginning.
Yeah.
So and I think as a worship leader, most of the time you're playing those chords on piano. You're playing those chords on guitar. So honestly, when you have a bass player that you're dealing with who you want to be a little more creative and maybe a little more busy, you know what I mean? To help the momentum of whatever part of the song is, you can look right down at the piano and say, all right, I'm playing a C, an E, and a G. So you can play, those are the notes that you can play. So try some of those notes out. You know what I'm saying? And then from there, it's a process of kind of knowing more bass specific stuff. And so this is the first thing I wanted to show everybody.
Okay.
So if we're in C and it's if the chords are C, we'll just do C to F, right?
Okay.
So the first one I think bass players should consider is the 5th. One, because it's easy on your hands, but also it sounds pretty good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So if I'm right here, if I'm on the 3rd fret on my A string, so there's my root, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the 5th is really easy to find. It's just up 1 string and down 2 frets. So the 5th is G. So I'm starting on C, and then I play the 5th, which is up 1 string and down 2 frets.
Right.
So there's root and 5, and there's also one lower, root and 5 right there.
Right.
And man, honestly, you can do so much with just knowing the root and the 5th of every chord. I mean, like, there's a ton of music there. If the groove is normally like, if it's just like an 8th note pulse thing, maybe it's like a 4 on the floor, kind of verse. As a bass player, you can do 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So there's a ton of movement, and it doesn't have to be that complicated either. I'm just playing whatever. You can make a strict line. And this is another thing as a worship leader, as somebody communicating to a bass player, maybe you can just say like you can create a bass line just with roots and 5s to teach your bass players. You can say and I'm just doing 1 1. I'm doing root, then I'm playing the octave 5 1 1. That's a bass line that is easy on piano and it's easy on bass and it's intuitive. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, once you kind of get into just knowing the 5ths of every chord, it takes your bass lines and expands them like immensely. So let's say so let's say it's 1 2 3. Then you go to we'll say F 2 3 4. We'll say A minor 2 3 4. F 2 3 4. So we'll say that. So I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play that chord progression, and I'm only gonna play roots and 5s the whole time.
All right.
So 1 2 3 4. And I mean that immediately takes your bass lines and just expand them. I mean, like I just said.
It's much more interesting. That's for sure.
Yeah, it is, and obviously, what I'm talking about is I'm trying to add depth to the bass to your bass players. You know what I mean? People who are watching this, I'm trying to add depth. Right. So obviously, you're never going to want a bass player to play like that all the time. That would be insane.
But there are times though that they can add and fill up the sound a little bit.
Exactly.
One thing, and you might mention this, or one thing that I was actually talking about this yesterday with one of my bass players, is that so like in maybe a slower tune that's more like. One thing that I like to show them is that they can try like they can play the root note with the kick, and then play the fifth with the snare. So it's more like
that's good.
And just kind of go along some of those lines. And so I mean, I don't know if, again, like you said, it may not fit everywhere, but it helps a lot too.
It's gonna fit a lot of places though.
Right.
I think that's great. I think absolutely.
Just to give them something to look for instead of just saying, okay, when do I play a 5? Because a lot of times if you just say, okay, play a 5, I've had bass players just go, and then just randomly, and then it just sounds really weird. And also I say, listen for that snare and then drop out completely when you hear the snare hit. Just to add that space, and I know you're probably going to talk about that in a minute, but it just kind of adds a little bit of depth to the sound. But keep going on that. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the other note that's involved in every chord is just the third of the chord.
Right.
And I wanted to mention this one, not just because it's the other option, but because it's a really popular sound in CCM right now, or contemporary, just like praise and worship music in general, is just the thirds of chords. You hear a lot of guitar players. That line I played earlier was very like guitar-y.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's like a really common thing that you hear right now in praise and worship music. But bass players, it's applicable also.
Yeah. Big time.
So go ahead. What'd you say?
I said big time. Yeah, I do it all the time.
Oh, totally. So just the same chord progression, 1 bar C, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, A minor, which is important to, show your bass players that there's a difference between major and minor.
Oh, yeah.
And then back to F, 2, 3, 4. So you can get to this. You can get to the third one of two ways. If you have your middle finger on the third, your first finger, if you have your middle finger on the root, your first finger is kind of already there on the third. It's 1 string up. So here's the root. It's 1 string up and 1 fret back. So again, here's where I'm starting C on the 3rd fret on the A string. And I go 1 string up to the D string and 1 fret back. So if you have your middle finger on the root, the third is kind of right here. Right? Another way to hit the third is just to go 1, 2, 3, 4 frets up on the same string. Those are probably the 2 most common ways that I do that. Right? So just to kind of do the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the cool thing about thirds is that thirds they're a leading tone in a lot of ways. So just going from 1 to 4 or C to F, I went C, 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 E, F, and while it's the third of C, the note like pulls to F really well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you'll find that in a lot of different chord progressions is that your thirds will lead you in a really natural way to other chords.
Yeah.
So that's why I think and then if you take the third up an octave, that's like I do that kind of thing a lot. Maybe if what's a song I can kind of show, just like a popular church song. or maybe one that your viewers are really gonna know.
Well, everybody's gonna know what we mentioned the other day, "Reckless Love."
Oh yeah, right. So then, so sing the verses for me. Also, I can't remember what key it's in.
We can probably do F.
Okay. Can you sing and play the? I can't hear the verse in my head for some reason.
Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God.
Okay, yeah. So that chord progression is 6, 4, 1, 5. That's like a perfect place to do what I was talking about, where you take the thirds up an octave.
I think it's 6, 5, 4, 1.
It is? Yep, you're right, dude. That's why they pay you the big bucks.
No.
So that would be like 1, 2, 3. But it doesn't have to be chords, right? So I would go. And that's another example of how the third goes into the next chord really well. Because when I got back to 1, I went F, A, D. I went from F, which is the root. The third is A, and which you can really feel it. When you hear it and you isolate it, is that it A, D. There's a certain resolution that's really nice.
Yeah, that 5-to-1 resolution, but in this case the 3-to-6 is the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it feels really nice. Absolutely.
Exactly. So yeah, just being aware, I would say, honestly, I would even say, like, don't try to do it all at once. Just pick one of them. Say, okay, for this whole song, I'm practicing for church this week. I'm gonna practice with the track, and I'm gonna play roots and thirds the entire time. You know what I mean? And just experiment and try things the whole time, just to really get in your head like what that sounds like and how it goes from chord to chord.
Absolutely. Let me interject right there.
Go ahead.
I think a lot of times when our musicians practice, they just say, okay, so take that song for example. They just hear, okay, oh, all right, okay, all right, got it, done, and they don't play, they don't have fun with that song and really try. Oh, and then like actually just enjoy playing that song with the track, because there's going to be things that you hear that you can mimic, even if it's just as simple as a 1.
Yeah, that's cool.
And people,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and people don't realize, just doing that 5, it's just really nice, and it just adds so much depth to the song. But again, not every time it's needed. But I think the missing link there for some bassists in churches is that they just don't sit down and just play. And
absolutely,
they're looking at the music. They're going, okay, well, there's the chords. It does that basically the whole time. I'm good.
Yep.
Man,
you know what? Not to do like a plug here, but I just threw up a practice session of a song that I practiced for church last
I was going to
Sunday.
mention that too. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah. And you know what? I went into it. Honestly, so the song was Spirit Breakout. It's not a difficult song, especially on bass. And I've played that song a billion times.
Yeah.
And I still love the song. Like, I don't hate, it's not boring to me at all. But part of the reason it's not boring is because every time it comes around and I need to like rehash it for a Sunday, I don't just go like, okay, it's 4, or maybe I'm thinking in F. If I'm thinking like, okay, it's, and then, okay, all right, I got it. I don't do that.
Right.
Because what's going to happen is you're gonna grow stale, and your approach to music is going to be, it's going to be very, very. It's never going to be fresh. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I think it's really easy to go into every church service and be like, all right, we're going to kill it like we always do. But honestly, man, in my life at least, that's not really how the Lord works in my life. Most days are different.
Yeah.
I very rarely have days that are similar. Even when I'm just doing mundane stuff. But the video that I threw up, check it out, because I left the mistakes in there. I left like things that worked.
You said it was a practice session, so I mean.
Exactly.
To me, it looks like kind of what I do. You just sit down with the track and have fun, And sit
Absolutely.
down with the vocal track too, because you'll hear things and pick up on things vocally that you can also add as a bass player. So
Yeah.
that's so good.
And just to talk about the spirit, kind of the spiritual side of things, just really getting into the music, it's going to be way easier to be aware of the worship that you're taking a part
Absolutely.
of and participate in the worship yourself when you don't have to constantly
I know.
think about, okay,
I know.
and then this happens, and then this happens,
I know
So-
that. Yeah, that's probably more important than playing something a little bit different. Is just to be
Absolutely.
more into what's happening and be able to respond with the congregation so much more. Yeah.
Yep. All right, you've got your fifths, you've got your thirds, you know the chord progression, you're really familiar with the song you're playing, but now we got to address, when do I do these things? And I love it because Chad earlier talked briefly about you could do it when the kick, you could do it in the snare. So, the next step to everything, honestly, whenever you learn a new concept is, okay, now you add rhythm to what you know. And rhythm, in a lot of cases, is even more important than just knowing the notes of the song, because the rhythm,
Right.
in Western music we only use 12 notes. So it's like, how does Latin music sound so different than music from Philly? How does that happen? The truth is, it's not the notes, it's the rhythm, and it's the way they execute that. So, for example, that song that we were just talking about, "Everlasting God." When you're playing the verse, so let's say when you're playing the verse and you have your fifths and everything, and you go through and the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna play one on beat one, right? So you're gonna play 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6. So you have that down, right? And it's really important. It sounds really dumb, and maybe I don't really need to say this, but it's really important that you check that off of your list. I remember of a time when I was a lot younger and a lot worse, when a much better Chad reached out to me as a younger person and was like, "Listen, I love what you're doing, but you need to play the roots on beat one." And I was like, huh. Interesting. But he's right though, and and you can kind of go back in time and listen to how bass players do that throughout all time.
Now, did I say that?
I'm pretty sure it was you.
That's funny. Sorry.
Okay, well,
Play the root on the one. It'll sound better.
yeah, it's true.
I don't know. I mean, maybe not. Maybe that was just me being silly at the time.
No, that wasn't silly at all. That was
I mean, I do have to tell some of our bass players that.
yeah,
but,
that's like a hallmark. That's like a hallmark of maturity. That's definitely something you told me.
Hey, but I'm sorry. This just hit my head since you said that.
Okay.
But when we were talking about practicing with the songs,
Yeah.
a lot of times that help. To me, I can be a very busy bassist, and I show up. There are churches that I would play for before I became a worship pastor full time, and they'd be like, "Can you do?" They didn't really know how to say it. Can you do a little bit less? I was like, "Oh, I'm too busy." Okay,
Yeah.
so I would play with the track, like the night before or whenever, and I would just go to town,
Killing it in the name of the Lord.
just
killing
right,
it.
just nasty stuff, on a 4-chord song, right? And then I'd get there, I'd get to the church, I'd be like,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, okay, whew, much better,
Yeah.
because I'm getting out what I want to play or what I'm just playing around with,
Yeah.
and then I play a little more mature, a little more to what I blend a little bit better. So I mean that may be something that maybe have an extremely busy bassist or.
Yeah.
Honestly, I wish I had an extremely busy bassist, but because I like to say hold on
Oh yeah.
more than I like to pull.
Yeah. I totally
Because
understand.
that means, okay, there's something there. Then I can just go, let it go and let them have it.
Yep.
And I love to be able to do that with people if they're just incredible. But
Yeah.
but anyway, that's just a little trick that I would do to help not be so busy. So that way, I would then come back to the root on the one. Because a lot of times I'll be playing, like a 17th on the one, and then, people just like, where's the bass line? Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
just enjoy my music.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just to kind of expand on that, if you're a more mature bass player and you're watching this, and you're going like, man, this is nothing. If for some reason if you've kept watching up until now and you're like, all right, I'm still not hearing anything new.
Click.
Yeah, exactly. One thing to think about is to really pay attention to the things that your teammates react to. Because what you'll learn is it's not a simple don't be busy, be busy. It's not that simple. There's a right and a wrong way and a right and a wrong time to do things. And again, that sounds really basic, but the truth is I'm a busy bass player and I've been busy my whole life. And whereas Chad had the maturity to be like, man, I really need to play less because these guys are my friends. I was like, I don't even know these guys. I'm gonna keep playing busy. And
when we would pick it up though, there's just times in that song I'm just
no, absolutely.
Just bring it all the way back down to the.
Absolutely.
I mean, I would, but you do tend to learn. Okay, when it needs to be soft, just play simple. There's no reason to play all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep going.
Yeah.
You're right. It's not an on and off. It's
no,
when,
it's not. It's not.
When and where. Yeah.
It's not. So yeah, I would say that if you're a more mature bass player and you're just trying to like figure out like what's next, I would say where Chad's in a position where when he has bass players that he wish played busy, you know what I'm saying? He has to kind of tell them like when to do things. But if you're a more mature bass player, then what I would say is you can find bass players who play busy in quiet sections, and you can find bass players who play really basic in loud sections. And there's a way to do that, and I would say, and this what I'm about to say applies to both bass players of any level. You've got to listen to music. You've got to listen to music. You're gonna sound the same way for your entire life unless you get out and you listen to bass players that are around you, and then also get on YouTube and find, just type in Everlasting God bass player. You'll find 10 cover videos of that. Watch 30 seconds, scrub through like 10 of them. You know what I'm saying? And what you'll hear like, oh man, this guy's doing this and this guy's doing this. And then more importantly, you'll hear like, whoa, this guy did this and it does not sound good. You know what I mean? And it's important to figure out the things that do sound good to your ears and the things that don't sound good. Because that's the next step in maturity. It's doing, instead of experimenting and trying to like forge new paths, you're like cutting down grass just to try to walk. It's you need to learn, you need to get to a place where you're doing more things intentionally and where you have more options kind of like on your color palette. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I would say that the majority of what I just said is just that little bit is for like more mature bass players. If you're a person who hasn't been playing bass that long and you're still trying to learn notes stuff, that's totally fine. And please keep doing what you're doing and learning what I'm talking about, the roots, the fifths. Okay, now the rhythm. I swear I'm going to get back to it. So the rhythm, you're a part of a team, and I kind of already said this already, but you're a part of a team and you've got teammates. The things that you need to consider about when you play something, are you getting in somebody's way? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there a piano player that's playing left hand low notes and they're whole notes, and then you're going like blah, 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 on top? That's weird. Don't do that because you're a part of a team. And then the other thing is, you've got a drummer who's telling you what to do. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So when you're playing, I think a lot of people look at drummers and they kind of see this like massive sound. But if you break down every part of what they're doing, they're telling you when you can and can't play. Or maybe that's not a good way to say it. They're telling you when it's cool and when it's like cool to play it. Like you said earlier, all you did was mention kick and snare. There's a whole bunch of music in there. If you only paid attention to the kick and the snare drum of the drummers that you're playing with, then you would figure out like, oh, he's playing the snare there. I can try playing a fifth there, or I can try playing a third there. Or he's doing. Yeah, exactly. That's the cool thing too. Is like, that's one thing I love to do. Actually, I really like drummers, and I will watch videos of drummers all day. Yeah. And when a drummer is doing a really busy kick pattern, or maybe it's something that I really like to listen to, I'll actually get out of the way just so I can hear that. If they're going doom doom ka doom doom ka, I'll play. I won't go doom doom ka I'll go. You know what I'm saying? And what I'm doing is it's the bump bump ka rest. I'm playing in the rest. You notice I'm not playing in the parts where stuff is happening. You know, I'm going do 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 ka do 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 ka do do ka.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And then it goes from there. And so I think as far as how you should play rhythmically, pay attention to who you're playing with.
Right.
Notice I'm not saying only do what's on the track, because you're going to get on Sunday and everybody's not going to be doing exactly what's on the track. And that's okay. You don't have to get mad at somebody when they don't do something on the track. But what you do need to do is you need to accommodate and change what you're doing to adjust to what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And that's okay, and that's not a bad thing. So I know some people get mad about that kind of thing because it can be frustrating. You know, I want somebody to learn a song, learn it this way. But really what you need to pay more attention to is adjusting to what's happening in the moment.
Right. Well, I tell my guys the track is just the standard.
Absolutely.
You know? At least be able to play that well.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great way to say that.
And then we can just we need to go up from there.
Yep.
As you bring yourself to that song.
That's a
but
great
at
way to
least
say
be
that.
able to play that track. I mean, because if they can't even do that, then I'm just like, oh, come on. But anyway.
Yeah, you're like, come on, man. Yeah, it's like, what are you doing all week? Okay, so
they'd be like,
moving on.
working and this and that. They'd bring out all these things. I'm like, okay, forget it.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to number 2, like kind of the second big thing that you as a worship bass player or any bass player of any level can be thinking about and working on. And I can't remember what I said. What is it?
Dynamics.
Right. Okay. The second thing that you can be working on is dynamics. Okay. Most people, when they think of dynamics, they think of loud and quiet. That's kind of where your mind goes normally, because that's in like traditional music, or maybe that's the first things you learn maybe when you learned music in school. But by dynamics, I'm talking about frequency of notes, how much you're playing, and how little you're playing. And the reason I say that is, as a bass player, dynamics are a little bit different. And as a worship leader, you should really know this about bass. Mm-hmm. Dynamics are different. Okay, it is not as simple as saying play quiet and play loud. If you notice on a lot of the tracks that you listen to in contemporary Christian music or praise and worship, the tracks will feel really loud even though it sounds quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, part of that is because of the bass. Because what they've done in the track is they have kept the bass in this kind of loud way, but you don't hear the note. It's not like hitting you in the middle of the head,
right.
But you still feel it. As a bass player, you can actually do this live. Most of the churches that you see that have the budget, they'll have this huge sound system, right? It is really hard to play quiet in a sound system. It is so hard because most of the time you've got a guy in the back that has your sound compressed, and they've got you boosted to a certain amount so that when you get in a certain range, maybe when you get down here, when you get down there, you'll feel the room just like light up. Mm-hmm. It is really hard to play quiet in that range. So one thing that you can do if you need to like simulate being quiet, or if you need to like simulate being louder than you were, is pay attention to how many notes you're playing. Okay, whole notes are really, by whole notes I mean like a note for 4 beats, or even a better way to say that is just a note for the duration of a measure or until you change notes. Yeah. That is, whole notes are a really easy way to simulate playing quiet, right? So that song we were just talking about, if I want to play quiet, a lot of times I'll go 4, 5, 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 2, 3. And if I want to play even quieter, what I'll do is I'll take my right hand, and normally I play here, kind of between my pickups, and I'll move it up to the neck. Because what it is it's a rounder, more hollow sound. And so you're getting out of the way of other people, and you're still playing. I still pluck just as hard, but I'm playing with a rounder, hollow sound, and it it really communicates quietness or like a down part of the song really well. And as a worship leader instructing a bass player, that's a really easy thing to tell them to do. Say like, okay, hey, you know what? This first verse, it needs to be quiet, but I still want you in. So just take your right hand and move up to the neck, like where you're literally touching the neck with your finger. Play up there. You know what I'm saying? And I'll kind of show you. I'll kind of A and B it right now.
Do it.
So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 6. Okay, now I'm moving my hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
So you can tell it's a huge difference. Just dynamically, it's way different, and it's going to affect the part of the song differently. So that's the first part is how do you play quieter when you're running through a system, or maybe you're running through an amp that is really hard to play quiet in, and you keep getting people going quiet, play quiet, play quiet, play quiet, and it's easy to just be like, all right, well, I'm just not going to play. But if you still need to be in, that's something you can do. Okay.
Right.
So the other way is how to play loud, right? So if you're at max volume and it's like, it's another bridge or another chorus and they want more from you, just changing how many notes you're playing gives a feeling of loudness. Exactly. Yeah, dude, preach at him, dude. That's what I'm talking about. I don't even need to do an example. That's exactly what I was going to say. That feels louder than playing whole notes, right? Okay. So, you have a way to play quiet. You have a way to simulate quietness.
I wouldn't even play in that loud.
Right.
I wouldn't even play in that loud.
But it's got more motion.
It's about that intensity.
Louder, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a way to kind of play quiet. We have a way to simulate quietness. We have a way to simulate playing loud. And notice what Chad did is perfect because he didn't really add that many notes. His right hand was just playing more. His left hand was not playing more notes, right? It was just his right hand. So know that, if you have a bass player who really, maybe if they're not comfortable with roots and fifths and they just can't branch out like that, just stick to the roots and play quarter notes. play,
right.
Just, do more with that one note. That's all you got to do. And it feels louder. So another trick that I like to do that has to do with playing loud is save your low notes. Save them. That's something I didn't figure out for a long time. But so I'm going to go back to that song, right? So okay, I'm gonna play I'm gonna do like a quiet like a quieter chorus, and then I'm gonna do a loud chorus.
All right.
And my right hand is gonna do pretty much the same thing, but my left hand is gonna do something differently, just as far as where I'm putting my hand. So
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now if it's louder. Just whole notes. Yeah. So, if you notice what I actually did, I kept it when I got lower. I actually played simpler for the most part.
Right.
Those last run through, I was playing whole notes. 3, 2, 3. And all I did, dude, I've done this in so many. If I can kind of see that, okay, it's a long song and it's a slow burn, I will intentionally not play low for the majority of the song, just so that when I get to the end, I got a little bit more. I've got another gear. I've got a little bit more gas in the tank that I can just kind of floor it.
Right.
And I'm literally playing less. But just because it's a lower note and it gets, if the whole mix is here, not everybody can play that because they literally don't have them on their instrument. So what I'm doing is I'm taking myself out of this mix and I'm getting under it. You know what I mean? So I'm adding another layer of depth. And that's just another way to simulate playing loud. I'm not plucking loud, and I'm not plucking more. And in fact, if you play a 5-string and you pluck that low string too hard, it's gonna sound real bad. It sounds bad. So what you actually have to, I'm actually plucking not as hard, just so I can get like that full. And you'll hear it in the sound system. You'll hear it in your amp. Your amp will just light up. The system that you're going through will just go like, and it's just another kind of trick. You know what I mean? It's legitimate music.
Let the speakers add that volume.
Absolutely.
Where you don't really need to.
Yep.
But
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I would say, and I think that's where I'm going to stop with number 2. It's just different ways you can play quiet, different ways you can play loud, because those are going to be the things that you're coming face to face with every single Sunday, every single service that you're playing in your practice session and all that.
Dude, that is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all that stuff with us.
Not a problem.
I mean, I know that, if you are more advanced, I feel like you're much more advanced than, say, the beginner kind of intermediate church musician, and you're still here with us. Thank you so much. Maybe you've learned a way to teach this to your students or to your other friend bass players or whoever else, and we appreciate you staying around and checking us out. And but to those guys that and to the worship leaders that are wanting to teach this, feel free to share this video with those bass players, but also try to internalize this. Maybe you're just a guitarist, maybe just take a few minutes and get on a bass. Maybe you can find a bass somewhere around the church or a friend of yours, if you don't have one yourself, and try to learn these techniques yourself, so that way you can then show your bassist. It's just a little bit better if you guys can just meet up and just show your bassist a couple things. Hey, here's coming from me, and then send them the video if you want to. It helps to kind of round out okay, well, if he's showing me this and other people are saying this, then maybe this is something that I will try. So just think about those things as you're helping out your bass players. I try to do the same thing with drums. I don't consider myself a drummer, but I try to learn at least how to explain the techniques or the things that I want to hear with drums. So, but again, we thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much, Josh, for being on the channel and showing us this stuff. If you want to learn more about Josh and what he does and want to hear him play more, go check out his channel, youtube.com. Josh Howard, I believe, is the title of his channel. So go check him out. I'll link it below, so you don't have to worry about it. Just click on that link. And then check out his book. He talks about that a lot on the channel. And just send him some love. I know he's an excellent musician, and I know you definitely learn more from him and listening to him play. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe to Josh, subscribe to Worship Leader Hangout, and remember, great worship leaders and bassists are always learning. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you next time. Play us out a little bit.